it's KC Concepcion, 27 overall. We get KCC attached to Kyle Shanahan. We can use him on some of those design run plays like we've seen in his profile. I think that there's potential for him to become the wide receiver one in this offense relatively quickly. Ricky Pearsall can't stay on the field. Jawan Jennings is a free agent. And Brandon Ayuk will be playing elsewhere next year. KCC is the next big hit for the 49ers.
They're not going to be able to deny the fact that they hire me to help them with wide receiver evaluations. I was a huge Debo guy first, then a huge Ayuk guy, then a huge Pearsall guy, and I'm a huge KC Concepcion guy. So if they go 4 for 4, Theo, it's freaking over. The rumors are going to start.
That's him. That's the OG.
The NFL Combine is officially in the books. We are in the month of March. It's starting to get real. Theo Gremminger and Brett Whitefield, 2026 NFL Draft Podcast. Brett, we're in the end game now. We have the athletic measurables. We geeked out for a couple of days. I know that I love the Combine. I think you love the Combine. Some people don't love the Combine, which I think is weird. But anyway, we got a lot of information coming in on these players, official heights, official weights. I always love hearing the NFL rumors. And I think it's time for the two of us to get down here and do a mock draft. We haven't recorded together for a while now. We've had some exigent circumstances here that we don't need to dive into necessarily. But how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited. Yeah, I do like the Combine. I like getting those boxes checked, by the way. Yeah, I have access to all the GPS info, so I've gotten pretty good at predicting what's going to happen in the Combine. So I'm not really too surprised. There's like one guy I think that really shocked me, and that was Mike Washington Jr. But other than that, everything kind of played out the way I mostly thought it would. So, but I'm excited to do this, man. It's been a long time.
Yeah, this is really fun. Brett and I are going to be recording multiple times a week now, I think. And expect to see Brett on Fantasy Football Daily, School of Scott. Like, this is your busy season, so to speak. A lot of enthusiasm, I think, on the dynasty side of things, where people holding the 106, the 107 now have a little bit of clarity that, hey, these picks could be a little bit better than I thought. Guys with those late first rounders the same way. How about from a pure NFL perspective? There were some great times, like in terms of the athletic testing this weekend. Do you think that this might have moved the needle for people that are maybe a little unenthused about this class, or in general, just from an NFL setting, like when you're doing your big board, how excited do you get?
Yeah, I've always thought this class was strong, Theo. I think it just has been weak in some of the fantasy positions where we only have one quarterback really, and then really one running back, and then it's kind of like we got to see who rises to the top. But from an NFL standpoint, like, there's a lot to like about this class, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think it's a really strong class.
So if anybody's seen the way that we've done these before, shout out to Alex Dunlap of Roster Watch. He was on our last one. I'm sure we'll have some guests for some of these mock drafts. Brett and I don't talk about it, and we don't share our mock drafts. We basically got on the phone last night. We each did a mock draft, and we sort of have an idea of who we're going to take with each pick. I'm going to start out at the 101. Brett is going with the 102. 102 becomes very, very interesting, but the 101 remains completely unchanged. If anything, I feel much better about Fernando Mendoza than I did last week. I mean, I was high on him. I know you were too, but Brett comes in at the Combine, 236 pounds. The hand size checks off. Similar hand size to like Patrick Mahomes. He's right then and there, but 236 for a guy listed at 225 all year long. So I think 225, whenever I see a collegiate listed 225 or 200 or 250 or like a round counting number, I'm like, this could be a fake weight that kind of sounds good. You always worry about a guy being listed 225, and then at the Combine he comes in at like 213, 217, and you're like, okay, 6'5", 213, maybe we're getting a little skinny here. Mendoza's a dog. 236, put into context the way he ran the football in important times against Miami and at other times this season. Like, Mendoza, he's been putting in work.
Yeah, when you see his build, like he's tall and skinny-ish, what that tells me is he's hitting the weight room. Like, he's got muscle mass. Muscle mass is obviously heavier than fat. So 236 with his build, that to me, that's significant. It shows you he's got a good work ethic. Adamantium bones, apparently. Wolverine.
Well, shout out to the comic book people out there. Would adamantium be considered on the lighter side? Like, is that affecting Wolverine's weight? Is it considered a heavier metal? I'm not sure, Brett. I think I know it's the density of it. It's very hard, but is it necessarily heavy?
I think it's heavier than bones for sure.
Okay.
It's heavier than vibranium. I know that.
Okay,
to really nerd out here.
Yeah. Shout out to the Marvel people out there. Okay, so let's go. This is the one where we actually did talk about it, where you're starting to see multiple mock drafts out there, and I know you're not paying attention to these, but I read a couple of these just post. I always like reading them post combine to see just how far the consensus changes. I've seen about 4 or 5 guys projected for the New York Jets. I think there is a lack of consensus as to who the 102 is right now. Who is your current 102? Last time we did this, it was Rueben Bain. The short arm people are out in full effect this week, Brett. Are you one of them? Or are you changing your pick?
No, I'm sticking with Rueben Bain. First of all, can we address the short arm thing really quick?
Yes.
So it's really important for the listeners to know this because it's not being talked about enough, like in the Twitter circles, if you hang out there. The NFL changed the way they measure arm length last year. A lot of these guys, it's not just Bain and Howell, a lot of these guys are having historically low arm length numbers as a class. As a class, it's historically low. And so they changed their methodology last year, so much so that last year, in aggregate, everyone's wingspans went up. So, like, the average wingspan in the NFL increased while arm length significantly decreased. That obviously doesn't make any sense. So they obviously changed what they did. I don't think Rueben Bain has good length. I'm not saying he does, but I don't think he's as small compared to historical standards as people think. Besides that, you don't see the deficiency on tape. And so I think that's the most important thing. If he was like Will Campbell, you could see that deficiency on tape all the time. You don't with Rueben Bain. So I think it's a little bit different of a conversation. I also don't think he has arms as short as people are alluding to.
Yeah, I mean, Rueben Bain's an absolute stud. And I think that there's a little bit of potential downside slide, but it's not going to be past like the 107 with Washington. I think when it comes down to it, I think when we're trying to assess what the Jets are going to do at the 102, they're going to take the best defensive player that they have on their board. Brett Whitefield's is Rueben Bain. I think that that's indicative of a player that I think Aaron Glenn might gravitate towards.
Can I talk about that for a
yeah,
sec?
Absolutely.
Sorry. Aaron Glenn was part of the Detroit regime that took Aiden Hutchinson second overall. Aiden Hutchinson, also a guy with not ideal length. He came in under all of the benchmarks, and that was when the NFL was doing it the old way even. So, there's another, strong history there too with like Levi Onwuzurike, Aleem McNeil, Josh Pascal, all those guys they drafted in Detroit. All of them came under benchmark arm length. So I don't really think it's something Aaron Glenn looks for or cares about. I think he looks for that speed to power conversion, and that's what Rueben Bain has.
And then when you're just thinking, and again, I'm putting you on the spot here. This isn't on a show sheet. I've asked you a lot of these contextual questions over the years when it comes to like wide receiver, running back, the things that I really care about. How do you compare this player? If you're just comparing the quality of prospect of Aiden Hutchinson to Rueben Bain, who's further ahead at this time in there? Or are they very close? Like, you don't have to have a definitive one here, but just compare the two prospects.
Yeah, I think Hutch was a significantly better prospect. Mostly Hutch should have been the first overall pick in that class.
Yeah.
But he's, he was an elite athlete, and he pretty much had a fully developed repertoire, whether that was, pass rush moves or power or that speed to power conversion. The only thing he didn't really have was like terrific bend, which I think you see on I think his sack numbers would be even higher if he had good bend. But so Bain's a fantastic prospect. I don't think he's quite there though. Like Hutch and any other GM picking first overall that year, they take him first overall. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it, and I think it adds context to it. But this is certainly a great pick for the Jets if they do get Rueben Bain here. 103, I wanted to do it, Brett. I wanted to just take Jeremiyah Love here, which I think is very much in play at the 103, especially after the combine that Love had, and I'm sure we'll hear his name called over the next few picks. But I'm going to go Arvell Reese. I understand that there's some Sonny Styles over Arvell Reese takes, but I think at the end of the day, Reese tested extremely well, and people are chasing the Micah Parsons profile for better or for worse. And I think when you look at Arvell Reese, he's really versatile. He's got that big-time edge rush upside. Like, this is a player that I think NFL teams are going to continue to fall in love with. The 103 seems about right. I know I've talked about him as potential like the 102. I know I'm maybe a little bit higher on Reese than you are, but I'll stick with him here. Arvell Reese in the books at the 103.
Word. Yeah, I'm obviously lower on Reese than you. I have a mock coming out on the site this week. It actually might be out by the time you're listening to this. I'll have Reese in the 10 to 20 range. So
okay, well there we go. We are officially butting heads on Arvell Reese. Let us know in the comments where you're at on Arvell Reese, how you think our top 3 looks. Rueben Bain, Arvell Reese. Brett, your article comes out this week. Make sure you're checking that out on fantasypoints.com. I'm going to do a Dynasty rookie rankings article. That's going to be coming out as well for this 2026 class. So putting that one together, I'm excited about that one. And I'm sure you're going to be updating some of that. Also, your rookie guide, Brett, what's the status on that? When can people expect that to drop? That's always absolute fire.
Yeah, that first launch could be as early as this coming Friday. I do anticipate it being more early next week, though.
Yeah.
And that first launch will include all the fantasy relevant guys, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. And then also make sure you follow my big board. Bookmark that page. It's getting updated constantly. I have a huge post-combine update happening this week as well. There's, I do really short write-ups on the big board, but, I'll have 125 guys written up. And you'll get to see kind of my thoughts and how they track throughout the whole process.
Yeah, make sure you're checking out everything that Brett is putting out there, one of the foremost experts on the NFL draft. Brett, where are we at the 104?
Yeah, I could go a number of ways here, and I'm just going to talk my way through it really quick. David Bailey sticks out like a sore thumb just because Robert Saleh with the defensive background, he loves those edge guys, right? But he did just trade for Jermaine Johnson, and that's probably not enough for them on the edge. However, I think it does allow them to kind of go BPA here. And they have a young quarterback in Cam Ward who got virtually no support at skill player positions last year. I'm going to go Jeremiyah Love here.
Love it.
The running back from Notre Dame. I've been traditionally a Carnell Tate in this spot guy, but I kind of think with the Robert Saleh mindset, the Brian Dable offensive coordinator, I think we want to run the ball here. I think that's the best thing we can do to help Cam Ward and see that next step of growth is we got to get better in the run game and more physical and take some of the pressure off Cam so we can hit some of those play action shots and get really effective and efficient in the pass game. So I'm going Jeremiyah Love here, Notre Dame.
Yeah, Jeremiyah Love, an unbelievable combine, unbelievable 4.36 40-yard dash, just a flawless prospect. And Brett, we were projecting him here before it was cool. You're seeing a lot of people doing Tennessee, Jeremiyah Love this week. We had this like 6 weeks ago. So, stick with us. We're trying to be ahead of the game here. But Jeremiyah Love, I love that one. I think Tennessee going with an offensive skill position player makes a lot of sense. I think Carnell Tate will say his name really soon. And if he would have just made the combine, if Carnell Tate would have done something just spectacular at the combine or maybe measured in at like 6'4", maybe this could have been the pick. Tate is going to go in the next few picks, but maybe not quite 104 range. I think Love has separated himself even further from the other skill position players in this draft class besides Fernando Mendoza. So completely with that. I'm going to go with another pick here that I don't know if the people are ready for. I know Brett Whitefield will be ready for this one. So the New York Giants, who have just been attacking edge rusher after edge rusher after edge rusher, they're going to make that front seven even better. I'm going to go with Sonny Styles of Ohio State, linebacker here, who I know you are a massive fan of before even that he went crazy at the combine. And just to put it in perspective here, like Sonny Styles, 6'5", 246, 4.46 40-yard dash, 43.5-inch vertical. Pop in the basketball highlights, Brett. This guy is a next level athlete. You add him to this Giants front seven. Like, let's build on a strength. Let's put him out there. Sonny Styles could be an absolute superstar in New York. I'm going Sonny Styles here, and I love the pick. And I talked about this with our resident New York Giants fan, Scott Barrett, who Scott's on the Caleb Downs to the Giants. I think this is going to be a defensive pick at 5. We've talked about Mansoor Delane potentially here. Where are you at on like your gut feel of which way New York's going at the 5?
I think this is it. I don't want to give too many spoilers out because I did write a whole mock, but I do have Styles going 5th.
Good.
So I think this is a great. So there's 3 premium players in this draft: Jeremiyah Love, Sonny Styles, and Caleb Downs. Unfortunately, they all play the weird positions that don't get drafted high typically. But considering there's only one quarterback at the top here, and there's not like super strong tackle prospects and stuff like that, I do think these guys all go in the top 10. So load up Sonny Styles. I think he's a phenomenal player. Argument to be the best player in this draft.
Yeah, just a ridiculous combine. I mean, arguably the winner of the combine was Sonny Styles. So reflected here, this is the highest he's gone in our draft so far.
Not to mention, he's also smart as a whip, like super smart, instinctual player. So he actually maximizes the athleticism because he's not just completely reactionary. He's a very high intellect player. So
where are you at here with the 106? Feels like a pick that could go in several directions for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, this is going to be the first shocker, I think, of the mock. I'm going to go with an offensive tackle here. It's not going to be any of the ones you think. It's going to be Georgia offensive tackle Monroe Freeling. They're coming out of the combine. He had a great combine for one, but coming into the combine, most of the people I know in NFL circles kept telling me this guy's going way higher than anyone is talking about. I had already kind of penciled in my mock, and I had him going here at 6, and then he went and did the combine stuff, the 6'7", 315 frame, just looked fluid as heck in all the drills. Really good athlete, tested as a fantastic athlete. There aren't any true pass protecting left tackles in this draft class except for him. I think the process, we were just slow to kind of get on him. Probably because of the Georgia thing. Like, there's a lot of offensive tackles that come from Georgia that don't do well in the NFL, and I think that's probably held them back a little bit. But I really do think when the dust settles, he will absolutely be a top 10 pick. He's leapfrogged guys like Francis Mauigoa for me. I've never really been a Fano guy, so I think this is a really good spot for him. As Cleveland sets to reset their offensive line, they just traded for Titus Howard the morning that we're recording this show, so they got bookend tackles now at the left and right side, just like that. Boom.
I love this one, and I actually think like the Mauigoa going at 6 overall, he might get punished because of Will Campbell's struggles in the Super Bowl. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's sort of like the Campbell, we had these discussions last year. Is he going to play inside? He's going to play outside. And I think with Mauigoa, he's definitely a first rounder, but probably not in this, top 6, 7, 8 picks. Probably falls in at 10, pick 10 or later. I had Monroe Freeling. I did this exercise last night with my mock draft, and I had him going 13 overall to the Rams. So we were both relatively close here. And I think that this is it's similar to like Membu last year, where we were higher on Membu, I think, than some people, and then Membu kept rising and rising. I think Freeling going in the top 10 is right on the table. Brett Whitefield has him at 6 overall. I'm in a great spot here with the Washington Commanders, and I think that there's several ways they could go here. I think David Bailey absolutely in play. I think that Carnell Tate absolutely in play. So they could get an unbelievable edge rusher. They could get a awesome wide receiver who we both have as our wide receiver 1 overall in the class. But I'm going Caleb Downs here. This is just it's best player available, a superstar safety. You go get your Ed Reed type. You put him in the back. And we talk about a franchise where over my shoulder, Sean Taylor in the background over here. So we've seen a superstar safety in Washington. I think Caleb Downs is going to sell a lot of jerseys in the DMV, and he's going to make a lot of Pro Bowls. Brett, it's weird to see a safety go this highly, but I think we're going to see 3 safeties selected inside of round 1 this year. I think safety is in vogue, especially like in a copycat league after the success that Seattle had last year with Nick Emmanwori. But I think that Caleb Downs is fantastic. We're talking about, Mel Kiper has him going 2 overall. So this is right in the wheelhouse.
I think two overalls in the range of outcomes. I do think, where the Jets are sitting, they might just pick the best player, and that could very well be Downs. So, love it.
Where are you at here with the New Orleans Saints? Fun pick and a wide open one, it feels like.
Yeah, I don't know that I've done a mock yet where I've had the option of taking David Bailey in the 8 spot. So this is very interesting, and it's not necessarily their biggest position of need, right? Let me see here. Well, Cam Jordan is old and a free agent, but they have Chase Young and Carl Granderson. Let me, you know what? I kind of want to put all my chips in the middle of Kellen Moore and Tyler Shuck here. I'm going to go Carnell Tate. I think this is a good spot for him.
Yeah, I was going to mention him.
He complements Chris Olave very well. So I think this is two demons on the outside to go control, the intermediate deep part of the field. I think it's a great spot for Carnell Tate. Tyler Shuck has the arm too to kind of maximize the Tate vertical route tree as well, which is, not something every quarterback can say. So
yeah, Carnell Tate, and let's talk about Carnell Tate. A couple people were like unenthusiastic about the fact the guy ran a 4.5. Do you care about that, Brett? And also 6'2", we thought he maybe was 6'3". People are like nitpicking a really, really talented wide receiver.
Yeah, like, no, I don't care at all. I'll use athleticism to like settle tiebreakers in my scoring system, but like it's really not that important for wide receivers. In fact, if you followed Scott Barrett's work for any amount of time, listeners, go check out his Metrics That Matter, I think it was, on the draft. Like 40 time negatively correlates with wide receiver success in the NFL. So, and that's not the player's fault necessarily. That's just the NFL overvaluing it. So we've had some pretty significant busts. But yeah, Carnell Tate ran roughly what I thought he would. I thought he'd be a high 4.4s guy, and maybe he'll do that at his pro day. I don't know. But also, have you seen all the people disputing his 40 times?
It's very weird. I think we're looking for stuff to talk about this time of year.
Yeah, but it actually makes sense. You go frame by frame with the clock in slow-mo. He picked his first move, unlike most players that run, was his plant hand comes off the ground, and you see the clock start before he ever crosses the line as soon as he picks his hand up. And so there's a lot of scouts saying they had him at 4.44, 4.45, and I think if you take out that slight pause, yeah, that's pretty much what he ran. So I think that's really interesting. Anyways, all that to say, I don't really care.
40 gate part 2. Last year, You guys were debating was Isaiah Bond's 40? You and
Isaiah
Scott
Bond ran faster than Golden, and they messed it up.
There you go. So we're back at it. Carnell Tate at the 8 spot. This makes this pick really easy for me. Jeremiah Love off the board, Carnell Tate off the board. I'm going to go with David Bailey. And David Bailey here at the 109, I think becomes a steal for the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah. David Bailey, like 14 and a half sacks this past year, so he was like one of the most productive players on the defensive side of the ball. Brett, you've been extremely high on him for months and months and months. And then I would say the athletic measurables for David Bailey were maybe even better than some people thought. 4.5, 40-yard dash, had a 35-inch vert, a 10.9 broad jump, had a great 10-yard split. Like, David Bailey is explosive and has production to him. This is like the kind of player that Kansas City just plugs and plays, and all of a sudden you look up and the guy's got double-digit sacks every single year.
Yeah, this is a dream scenario for the Chiefs, who they're light on the premium positions, right? They need wide receiver help. They need corner help. They need edge help. They need offensive tackle help. So to get a guy of this caliber at 9, I mean, what a great way to reset that defense and kind of retool.
Yeah, no, it's the easiest pick I've had to make today. Your OTC here with the Cincinnati Bengals, who are probably going to be a little bit upset about missing out on guys like Caleb Downs, David Bailey. The table was setting up nicely for them, and now it's sort of, who do they take?
Yeah, this one, I feel good about the pick. I don't necessarily love this player, but I do love the swing at ceiling. I'm going to go with another edge defender here, and I'm going to go edge from Auburn, the 20-year-old Keldric Faulk. Guy's 6'6". What do he measure? He measured like 275, right, Theo?
Yeah, he's a massive. Yeah, I think like 276 maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, and what we've learned from Cincy over the years is they really do prioritize high-level traits over necessary, like college production. Shamar Stewart last year, a high-level traits guy, not necessarily a high-level production guy in college. Well, Faulk kind of is a very similar player in a lot of ways, and it kind of gives them bookend edge defenders with an enormously high ceiling, and it's kind of fun. And Faulk can even kick down and play some 3 technique on sub packages and rush the passer on third downs from inside. I really like this fit, this player team fit here with Faulk. Even though I'm a little lower on Faulk, I think if he went 10, I'd feel a lot better about it than if he went, to some of these other places in the top next 10 picks here.
Yeah,
so.
I had him going 17 overall to your Detroit Lions when I did my mock last night. So we're sort of in the same wheelhouse here. And yeah, it would be a very, very helpful pick to Cincinnati. Certainly feels like a tier break between David Bailey and Keldric Faulk. I wonder if we're in a situation where some of these elite defenders start falling into the 7, 8, 9 range. Could we see Cincinnati trade up and go ahead and get one of those guys? And I think that's a team to keep an eye on, Brett, because as good as Faulk is, if it takes only a little bit to get up and get a David Bailey without that sort of development, the way that Cincinnati's built right now, win now sort of build with Joe Burrow there, sure. I think they're a team that we want to circle. And this, Brett, I mean, this might not be a draft class where there's a whole lot of movement inside the top 10 in terms of trades, but we will circle Cincinnati. Miami Dolphins here, and I really, really, really want to do it. I really want to take Kenyon Sadiq or a wide receiver here. I think both of those picks would make sense, and I'm very fantasy-driven, but I think this is going to be Mansoor Delane out of LSU. This one makes too much sense. An elite cornerback. We've talked about Delane going as high as 5. I think at 11 he becomes a steal. Miami's made a defensive hire at the head coaching position, and I think they continue that with Delane here at 11 overall. Get a foundational cornerback for them.
Yeah, and this cornerback room, as it stands right now, is probably the worst in the league. And to boot, you have Jeff Hafley who comes in and runs this insanely exotic coverage scheme where he needs defensive backs that can wear multiple hats. They can be good in press man. They can be good in short zone. But Mansoor Delane is the most versatile corner in this class, by far. You could make the argument Jermod McCoy is more talented of a player, but I think Mansoor Delane fits Jeff Hafley to a T and what he wants to do. This is a fantastic pick for them.
Yeah, so we're in line on a lot of these picks, Brett, without sharing. So I love that. All right, Brett, get in Jerry Jones's head. Get in the organizational head here. This is an interesting pick, and I'm seeing a lot of people mocking a defensive player here at 12, but there's a number of different players who people are connecting to the Dallas Cowboys. I think certainly, Mansoor Delane would have made sense here. There's a couple of the edge rushers we talked about. I think they would be in play. Dallas switching defenses here. They're going to like a 3-4 from 4-3. So this is an interesting. Do they go and get somebody for this new scheme? I'm not sure which way they go. Which way are you leaning for Dallas?
I actually like the switch to the odd front for them, just because I think the guys up front they have fit that better. Whether it's Osi Odigizua, Kenneth Clark, Quinn Williams, it allows them to get all three of those guys on the field at the same time, and I think that's kind of important. There's a lot of ways to go here. They need an off-ball backer. They need safety help. They need corner help. They could use another edge rusher. There's a lot of places they could go. You know what? Let's go. Let's go with the other super talented corner. Let's go Jermod McCoy.
Yep,
cornerback from Tennessee. I think this allows them to get Deron Bland potentially back in the nickel spot. Go with Siobhan Revel and Jermod McCoy on the outside with Deron Bland in the nickel spot. Kind of allows them to play their best three corners there, and I think that would really – you kind of fix two spots by making the selection.
This is who I had Dallas taking when I did my mock draft last night. I think it's going to be – you're seeing a lot of like back and forth as to who the first cornerback off the board is going to be. I think it's going to be Delane. We've been on the Delane train, but McCoy's very, very close. Of course, missed the season last year, but a locked-in, high-end cornerback prospect, and I think he'll get top 15 draft capital when it's all said and done. So I really like this one. And again, Dallas has that pick coming up at 20, so they really can go best player available here, knowing that they can clean up any other positional needs at 20. 13 overall for the Rams here. This feels like an interesting one. I think if the top two cornerbacks were still on the board, those two players would be in play. I think that really for me, it's going to be an offensive lineman, though, when it's all said and done. Do the Rams go with a player like Kadyn Proctor, who's just a massive, massive man, an athlete? I think this is eventually going to settle in to Francis Mauigoa. We like him a lot, and the fact that he might have to bump inside, could play tackle, could play guard, I don't think it really matters. I think when you look at LA, they've got to get younger on the offensive line, and they are still in their Super Bowl window, and Mauigoa doesn't need a whole lot of development. We saw it last year for Miami, one of the best linemen in college football, and now the Rams add him. It really solidifies things for them. I think it's a valuable pick, maybe not the upside for some of these other linemen, but I think Mauigoa is going to be a very good NFL player. Your thoughts on this selection?
The Rams are really hard to predict because they do have a really solid roster, and some of the positions of need, like you mentioned, corner. There's not really maybe they go in Avieon Terrell here, and we'd see three corners in the draft come off the board consecutively. I don't really see that though. They're a hard team to mock. I'm not going to lie. So I think this is fine. I mean, it's an upside swing at offensive line. I do think they liked what Warren McClendon gave them at right tackle last year. But shoot, I mean, you can never have too many talented offensive linemen, and Warren McClendon's not like a high pedigree guy anyways. So maybe maybe Mauigoa beats him out in camp for a job, or maybe he's their sixth offensive lineman and can back up 4 spots. I don't know.
Yeah, so he's really, really physical, and there's been a lot of people sort of arguing as to what spot he plays. Eventually, you're projecting him to be a right tackle. Is that correct, or are you sort of?
That's where I would start him first. There's such a premium value on tackles. Like I like playing him at tackle first, see if he can do that. If he can't, then we have guard as a fallback option. But I want to get him at tackle first.
Well, there you go. Okay, so you were OTC here with the Baltimore Ravens. Another fun pick, and another one where I could see them going in several directions, and I could see them going offense or defense.
Yeah, this is my first sprint to the podium pick of the draft here. We're going Caleb Banks, defensive tackle from Florida. This is such a Ravens pick where they're just going to draft the guy with the most potential available. And Banks is like, I've been describing him as a Ferrari that just needs someone to put him together. He's all the parts of a Ferrari, but he's not currently assembled as a Ferrari. They need a coaching staff and Jesse Minter to come in and turn him into a Ferrari. If they get it right with this pick and Banks does develop, that defensive line, it could be very scary with him. He can play pretty much anywhere up and down the defensive line at 6'6", 330 pounds. Very good athlete for the size. Like he is a fantastic high ceiling prospect here.
Yeah, and we were both in Mobile. This was one of the sessions where Caleb Banks, like, good God, the guy on the sideline. Like, if the aliens landed and we said pick out the best NFL player on this field, it probably would have been Caleb Banks. Caleb Banks is an absolute unit. So I think that the steam is full steam ahead for Caleb Banks since the Senior Bowl, now the Combine, and it fills a need for the Baltimore Ravens as well. They need an interior lineman there, so Banks is just an absolute monster. This makes my pick really, really easy though. I'm going to go with a fantasy friendly selection here. We saw them go with Emeka Egbuka last year. We saw Jalen McMillan and Bucky Irving the previous draft. Cade Otton, correct me if I'm wrong, set to become a free agent, and he's sort of a jag anyway. So This is the easiest pick I've ever made here. Kenyon Sadiq at 15 overall. We had projected them to get Sonny Styles a couple of weeks ago. That ship has sailed, but they get the offensive side of the ball best athlete in Sadiq, who had one of the best combines we've ever seen from a tight end. And Sadiq is just a plug-and-play player here. We've seen the franchise in years past draft O.J. Howard very highly at the tight end position, like going years and years back. I think this is sort of Kenyon Sadiq is going to hit at a higher level here. Really, really into Sadiq. People were hand-timing his 40 at 4.35, Brett. I mean, absolutely absurd vertical, absurd 40-yard dash. The fastest 40 ever for a tight end, 4.39. This is a fun one. You get Zach Robinson taking over this offense. You got Bucky Irving. You got Baker Mayfield. You got Emeka Egbuka. You got Chris Godwin. McMillan is going to be healthy this year. You add Sadiq into that mix. There's a lot of upside with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Totally. Yeah, Sadiq is the game I've been playing with myself in my brain is how many different positions could he play in the NFL if he spent a year training for it? Like, he could probably play running back. He'd obviously could play fullback, tight end. He could play wide receiver if he lost a few pounds. He could play defensive end. He could play off-ball linebacker. It's a special player here, man. Like, this is a really good player who's obviously a freak athlete. So
we could slim him down and have him play safety a little too, Brett.
Yeah,
you know?
maybe you could do that.
He's an absolute. I mean, unbelievable athlete, and this is right about that similar range that we've seen the last few years, where Brock Bowers, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland all go in this similar range, and I think this is where the NFL just becomes a little comfortable, somewhere in that pick 10 through 15 range for tight end 1. This could be a trend we're looking to follow with every sort of elite tight end prospect. And athletically gifted, there's still a lot of people out there in the fantasy community who are very concerned about the analytical profile for Sadiq, the production profile. Again, he's young, checks off a ton of boxes here, and he's going to have the draft capital. I think this pick makes a lot of sense. Do we see back-to-back offensive players selected here? Jets on the board at 16. You went with the best defensive player available at 2 with Rueben Bain. How do they follow it up at 16?
Yeah, we're going to go with another top 10 prospect for me in Penn State offensive lineman, Ioane. Vega
Ioane.
as I like
Vega Ioane.
Vega Ioane. He's a mauler. Perfect for what Aaron Glenn wants to do in the run game. And I know Aaron Glenn's not the GM. Somebody commented that on one of our YouTube videos. I know he's not the GM, but if you don't think the head coach has the most say in the types of guys he wants in the locker room, you're mistaken. Anyways, Vega's awesome. He's a mauler. The Jets have both their starting guards are pending free agents right now. We're obviously doing this before free agency. Maybe they retain both of them, and then this conversation's all for naught. But I do think they're going to let one of those guys go. Probably Elijah Vera Tucker has not been healthy. Ola Ioane can step in right away, be a starter from day one. He's your starter for the next 10 years kind of guy. I know that's a cliche we used to like to say, but it's true for this one, man. And they get the best trench player on the defensive side of the ball and probably the second best trench player on the offensive side of the ball. So I think it's a good foundational draft for the Jets.
Yeah, and this is one where I had him going at Baltimore at 14 overall when I did my mock last night. I think it's a really good one. And anybody saying that Aaron Glenn doesn't have a really strong voice and presence there, like Woody Johnson backs him up every chance he gets. And the guy went 3-14 last year. If they didn't like him, they would have gotten rid of him. So they obviously value him coming over from Detroit. The looking to emulate that sort of a build like Detroit was able to do there with Aaron Glenn. So for better or for worse, I think getting Rueben Bain, getting Vega Ioane, they also have an early second round pick coming up. This is a good start. I think people would really like this start in New York, and it's a foundational start for the Jets as well. I'm OTC here with your Detroit Lions, and I feel like most of the time you're making the selection for Detroit. Now I'm on the clock here. I could go edge rusher. I certainly could do that, but I'm going to go with a offensive lineman. I'm taking Kadyn Proctor. I'm taking the massive 366-pound offensive lineman with physical tools to him. I think Kadyn Proctor is an absolute beast. He's strong. He can play guard. He's just going to help in the run game. You talked about the run game here with Drew Petzig. I mean, add Kadyn Proctor to the mix. I mean, hey, Jahmyr Gibbs might like running behind Kadyn Proctor. You tell me.
Yeah, he's going to have to play left guard for them this year, which is fine. Taylor Decker's coming back. And then maybe he develops into your left tackle of the future. Worst case scenario, though, you just drafted your left guard of the future, which is fine. Wouldn't be my favorite pick, to be honest, but that's okay. I mean, I'm never going to be mad about investing into the offensive or defensive line in the first round. That's just never something I will complain about. I don't care if you got 5 starters on the offensive line. You want to take an offensive lineman? That's totally fine by me. So yeah, I'm not going to argue with this one. Not my favorite pick here, but I would be totally fine with it in the long run.
And just, you don't have to tell the people who the name is, but would you have gone edge rusher here for the Lions?
Yeah, I would have gone Mesidor or Parker for sure.
Okay,
but
that's fair.
Only because Decker announced he's coming back. If we were still in limbo on that, totally understand looking for a left tackle. Maybe we try to go with a Spencer Fano or something like that. But ultimately, with Decker back in the fold, I probably think they prioritize edge, at least in the first round. Then second round, different story. Maybe that's where they go offensive line. So
you got 18 overall. You're OTC with the Minnesota Vikings. Yep. They've been sort of heavy in the news. Anthony Richardson is going to be potentially traded to Minnesota. Is the rumor out there?
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that one? And then Aaron Jones, he's going to get cut. So it's slow drip with Minnesota. Do you see an offensive side of the ball here or defensive side of the ball?
No, I'll go defensive side of the ball. With Harrison Smith retiring, I think there's a very clear need on this defense, and I'm going to go with Dillon Thieneman from Oregon. Listen, I mocked this guy at 18 2 weeks ago when I did my mock draft 1.0 before the combine. I've been on Thieneman. In my mock coming out this week, he's going to be going higher than number 18. So I really think he's a fantastic player. The gap between Caleb Downs and Dillon Thieneman is actually not as much as people think it is. Caleb Downs is like this generational safety prospect. Well, Thieneman's probably the second best safety prospect we've had since Kyle Hamilton. So
wow, that's a huge statement here when you back it up with the athleticism that Thieneman had.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. The ball skills, the fact that at Purdue he was primarily a deep safety, kind of had to live on instinct and covered a ton of ground, and then he goes to Oregon and they turn him into this slot box safety hybrid, and he just dominated at both spots. Tells me he's the modern day switchblade. in the NFL, where he can play all three of those spots at an extremely high level. The ball production is ridiculous. The athleticism is ridiculous. The size too. He's prototype size, like everything you'd want. He's a green dot type of player as well, where he's calling the defensive plays for Oregon last year. I mean, this is a really high level prospect, and Caleb Downs' presence has kind of overshadowed how impactful he is. But they're both fantastic prospects here. So
yeah, I love the pick. It's actually who I had Minnesota taking, and I think a lot of people are going to have Minnesota taking him here. He could go a little bit higher, though, Brett, with those sort of athletic testing measurables. Could go inside of the top 15 quite easily. A huge combine winner. I'm OTC here with Carolina. A couple of my guys are still on the board here. Makai Lemon, Jordyn Tyson, KC Concepcion. I really want to take a wide receiver here, but I think Akheem Mesidor makes a lot of sense here. You get your edge rusher. He's an older prospect. It's a plug-and-play guy. Carolina gets better immediately at the pass rush by taking Mesidor. So I'm taking Akheem Mesidor, edge rusher out of Miami here at 19 overall. Might be a little high for some people. I know I've talked to some other people who have a few other edge rushers higher than Mesidor, but I know you're high on him.
Mesidor's awesome.
Yeah.
This is not too high for Mesidor. He's a very good player. I tell you what, offensive tackles are going to hate playing against Mesidor and Nick Scorton if that actually happened, because those dudes they're both bullies, and they play very physical brand of football. They will beat you up for the entirety of a football game there. So that's a fun pairing there.
Who do you have here at 20 overall with the Dallas Cowboys? A second selection. You're making both of them. The first pick you had Dallas taking Jermod McCoy, the cornerback out of Tennessee. Do they go defensive again here at 20?
You sniped me with Mesidor. He was going to be my pick here at 20. So, I could go a variety of ways. I could go another corner, just go back to the well, but I don't think we're going to do that. We're going to go.
Feels like C.J. Allen to me, but I could be wrong.
See, I'm a lot lower on C.J. Allen. I get the leadership stuff, but I think from a physical standpoint, you just have some limitations there that he doesn't scream first-round backer to me. Like, if you can't hold up in coverage or as a pass rusher, if you can't affect the pass game, you can't go in the first round as a linebacker, in my opinion. But I understand the hype. They do need a mic. They really do need a mic. I think Overshown's a good will, and I'm not counting on who's the other guy? Murray?
Yeah.
Kenneth Murray? Yeah. Brother, this is tough. Let's go. Yeah, let's just do it. C.J. Allen.
Good.
Linebacker, Georgia. I don't have a first-round grade on him, but that doesn't mean he won't go in the first round, and there is a clear need here that works. So let's go C.J. Allen, linebacker, Georgia.
Yeah, Hill out of Texas, C.J. Allen out of Georgia. I
like Hill better.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Alex Dunlap talked about Hill being a guy that he's really high on. I think both those guys are going to go somewhere in that. It's going to be difficult to predict, but they're going to be in that like 20 through 38 range for both of them.
Golday too from Cincinnati. He'll be up there too.
Yeah, so I mean, linebacker's a little bit difficult to predict, but I think walking away with C.J. Allen and Jermod McCoy, I think Cowboys fans would be ecstatic.
Yeah.
Here at 21 overall, like I went very pragmatic with Akheem Mesidor at 19 when I wanted to go wide receiver, and it's the same thing here. I think Spencer Fano makes a ton of sense here at 21 for Pittsburgh, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take Jordyn Tyson, and I'm going to go Jordyn Tyson, wide receiver, Arizona State. Does Makai Lemon, that sort of prototype of KC Concepcion, make a little bit more sense with sort of overlapping with DK Metcalf? Both are sort of outside receivers. I think Tyson's versatility would really shine with Mike McCarthy. I think he could be an absolute star with McCarthy. Tyson, 26 reps on the bench press, Brett. Yeah. Weighted at 203. Looks the part. Like, I love Jordyn Tyson. I think this is a great value for him. And I think we're going to start seeing wide receivers flying off the board here inside the 20s. Yeah. So love the Tyson value, and I love the Tyson fit with Pittsburgh. A year opposite DK Metcalf, and who knows what the future holds. Tyson, I think, will be the number one option in the passing game sooner than later here in Pittsburgh.
Yep, I love the player fit combo here. Honestly, any of the receivers available in some way would work for Pittsburgh because DK is such a unique player.
Yep.
It's like DK is limited in his own right, so it's like all these guys could fit a piece of the puzzle for them for sure. But Tyson kind of gives them that that potential wide receiver one of the future for sure, and I think that's important. So,
LA Chargers here at 22 overall. Another team that's very interesting. Feels like a lineman to me, either an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman. They've been a lot of people sort of thinking that they're going to go with an interior defensive lineman in these projections. There's one obvious name I just said, Spencer Fano. I think would make a lot of sense here. Your thoughts on which way the Chargers go and who's your pick?
Yeah, see, I've thought about interior defensive lineman because, that's just Jim Harbaugh, right? But they did sign Tier Tart. They just gave him the bag, actually. They have Jamari Caldwell, who they drafted last year to play nose, who is very good as a rookie. I think Deshaun Hand is a free agent, but he's going to be a cheap re-sign for them, I think. So I think they're going to return their top 3 interior guys. They drafted Justin Ebiogi last year from Alabama, who's also more of that 5 technique guy like Deshaun Hand. So they have options there. I think offensive line is actually where it's kind of dire. And it's weird to say because they've invested so much into this offensive line. I think they have the bookend tackles in Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, but the Mekhi Becton plan has not gone well. Bradley Bozeman just retired, and Zion Johnson's a pending free agent who's probably going to get paid more than they want to pay him. There's a chance he walks out the door, so they might need 3 guys on the interior. I'm going to go Spencer Fano from Utah here, and I'm drafting him to play on the interior of my offensive line next to a Joe Alt or next to a Rashawn Slater. I don't care if he goes left guard or right guard, but he's going to play guard for me.
I think it's a great pick. I will say this is where like the merging of NFL draft and then how teams attack free agency will come into play. Yeah. I think that there's a chance here, like everyone's, and you're very wise to sort of take Fano. That would have been my selection here if I was on the clock and he was still there at 22. Interior defensive lineman, offensive line, both make a ton of sense. But I'll throw the wild card out there. Quentin Johnston will be on a 5th-year extension. Like, they're going to have to make that decision coming up, and I don't know if they're going to do that. They've invested so heavily at the wide receiver position over the last couple of years, trying to get it right. Ladd McConkey, Trey Harris, Denzel Boston would make some sense here, especially with Keenan Allen set to presumably move on. They make the Mike McDaniel hire. I think an offensive skill position player is not out of line, and they drafted Omarion Hampton last year. So I will say that would be the wild card. If we see LA go out and sign a defensive lineman or maybe attack with maybe 1 or 2 interior offensive linemen in free agency, keep an eye on wide receiver here as just a wild card selection. I'm here with the Philadelphia Eagles. Howie Roseman always seems to go best player available, always seems to get a great grade, and it's going to be no different here. I think this is TJ Parker out of Clemson, who I know you're a big fan of. Philadelphia gets an edge rusher here in Parker. I think everybody will love the selection. You'll see a lot of B pluses and a lot of A's on this grade in the first round. It's sort of par for the course. I wanted to take Eli Stowers here, which I think is now in play starting in 23. I wanted to. I'm being pragmatic today because people always think that I'm going pure fantasy here. So I think Stowers is absolutely in play here, but I think TJ Parker makes a lot of sense. Stowers probably goes somewhere in the next 10 picks, maybe 15 picks, but I think that TJ Parker, the value he presents here at 23, I think he's just an easy click.
Yeah, this is absurdly late for an edge rusher with the talent that TJ Parker has. So we typically don't get this opportunity. The last time I think we did it was like TJ Watt at 30.
Yeah.
So this is a great pick for the Eagles, and it's totally in Howie's bag, totally in Howie's bag. So all right, I'll get the fantasy juices flowing.
This is definitely a wide receiver pick, but is it Makai Lemon or is it KC Concepcion or Denzel Boston?
I was going to go Denzel Boston here. Just schematically, I think it works the best for what Todd Monken wants to do, and they kind of have some of the KC Concepcion, Makai Lemon vibes with a Jerry Jeudy already, and I think they need a more complete trio of players here at wide receiver. So let's go wide receiver Denzel Boston from Washington. Big X-type receiver, but I'm fascinated by him getting some power slot opportunities as well, especially when Harold Fanon's on the field, because I think the two of them together could just create mismatch nightmares for opposing defenses. So Denzel Boston, wide receiver, Washington, to the Browns at 24.
The fantasy part of me really wants to just say one of these wide receivers, but the fact that they have Luther Burden, it doesn't really mesh well with a Makai Lemon or KC for the Chicago Bears, I mean.
Yeah, you could pick Makai Lemon, who stinks, to go with Luther Burden.
No, so on the record, I love Makai Lemon here. I'm gonna go with. This is easy for me. I'm going Peter Woods here at 25.
Yep.
I think this makes a ton of sense. The slide ends. I think some people would have had Woods going a lot higher. 25 becomes a massive value. I know we've talked about Caleb Banks as the Bears selection. Woods and Banks basically flip-flop in terms of the projected draft capital. But I think Peter Woods, Bruce Feldman's freaks list guy, this is the lowest he's gone in any of our mock drafts that we've ever done for him. So like Peter Woods, an absolute slam dunk. We saw Chicago attack the offensive side of the ball last year. Most of their beat reporters feel like they're going to draft a defensive player this year. Banks has been associated here. CJ Allen, there's some Bears beats on that one. But I think ultimately Peter Woods makes a ton of sense here.
Yeah, Peter Woods next to Gervon Dexter is like a perfect pair to me. So that's fantastic. Two guys with a lot of girth that can also get after as a pass rusher. This is another one that actually matches my mock that's coming out this week. So good. Look
at that. I'm picking Brett Whitefield's mock without even seeing it. I love it, Brett. Where are you going here? If you don't take a wide receiver here, then the fantasy community is going to riot.
I got it.
Okay,
I got it. We're going wide receiver here. I got options. I got Makai Lemon from USC. I got Casey Concepcion, who's my guy, my personal flag plant, who I'm still convicted will go higher than this pick, but that's okay. But I think for what Buffalo really needs, I'm actually going to pass on the flag plant. I'm going to go Makai Lemon. And I'm not the biggest Makai Lemon guy. We've talked about this. I just think for what they need a consistent player who can help, absorb like a tremendous amount of target volume. I don't know that KC's that guy. I think KC's more of a Jameson Williams type, where he's 120 target ceiling kind of guy. Maybe in the right opportunity he gets more, but I think Makai Lemon can get to that 150 target range.
Yes.
If he develops correctly and everything's right. And I think that's what Buffalo needs. They don't need another just piece of the puzzle. They need the freaking puzzle. You know what I mean? So let's go with Makai Lemon here, wide receiver USC.
Love this fit. I've actually mocked previously Buffalo trading up to get Makai Lemon, maybe 10 picks higher. There's been a little bit of rumors about how the interviews didn't go so well for Makai Lemon. That's one we're going to keep an eye on. But when he falls into this range and Buffalo doesn't have to move up, gets one of the best wide receivers in the class, the fantasy community would be head over heels for a Makai Lemon, Josh Allen pairing. This would be one where people would probably steam him up just like he would have gone in the top 10, going 26 overall to Buffalo. And this is another easy one for me. Wide receiver cleanup here. I think Eli Stowers is in play for San Francisco here at 27 for another fantasy name to keep an eye on. I think Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is in play here. I think Cashius Howell is in play here, but ultimately it's KC Concepcion, 27 overall. We get KCC attached to Kyle Shanahan. We can use him on some of those design run plays like we've seen in his profile. I think that there's potential for him to become the wide receiver one in this offense relatively quickly. Ricky Pearsall can't stay on the field. Juwan Jennings is a free agent. And Brandon Ayuk will be playing elsewhere next year. KCC is the next big hit for the 49ers. And this sort of follows a trend where we saw them select a Brandon Ayuk, where we saw them select Deebo Samuel in the early second. We saw them take Ricky Pearsall a few picks later than this a few years back. So sort of in this late first round, we've seen San Francisco embrace the wide receiver position multiple times. I think they do it again with KCC here at 27.
I'm just going to go on record and say if they take KC Concepcion, they're not going to be able to deny the fact that they hire me to help them with wide receiver evaluations. Because I was a huge Ayuk guy. I was a huge Deebo guy first, then a huge Ayuk guy, then a huge Pearsall guy, and I'm a huge KC Concepcion guy. So if they go 4 for 4, Theo, it's freaking over. The rumors are going to start.
They're already out there. They're already out there. The Brett Whitefield influencing the San Francisco 49ers draft selections. That's already out there in the community. Which way are you going to go here at 28 overall for the Houston Texans?
Yeah, this one is super easy to me. Just because I know what D'Amico Ryans and Chris Korsak like on the D-line. they have pending situations with Sheldon Rankins and Tim Settle Jr. and Danico Autry. All three of those guys, kind of more interior players for them, are pending free agents. Fatukasi also, so they have four of their top 5 are free agents. I'm going Lee Hunter, defensive tackle from Texas Tech. The length, this guy's got like 35-inch arms. And he's built like a fire hydrant, 6'3", 325. He's glued to the ground. Like, you cannot move this guy. He is a better version of Tim Settle, who's been dominant in that defense for them. And the rich just get richer here on the D-line. And I just love the Texans just leaning into it here, just making sure they have the best D-line in football. And Lee Hunter he'd do wonders for everyone involved in that situation. So this is a slam dunk pick for me here with the Texans.
Yeah, I actually had Lee Hunter going to Houston at 28 in my mock draft, so we're sort of very much in line with Lee. I think Lee Hunter being inside the first round is, I don't want to use the word lock because we're talking about 28, but I think it becomes more and more likely throughout the process from the Senior Bowl up into the Combine. Lee Hunter, there's a lot of steam there for him. And going ahead of like a Caden McDonald, where maybe a couple months ago we might not have had him there, I think we're both there. So LA at 29 overall, I mean, do I just do it? Do I just take Ty Simpson here? I don't really want to.
I think we're on Ty Simpson watch for sure.
Yeah, I think this is.
But there's a name at the top of your board here that I think you got.
Yeah, I think this is Avieon Terrell. I think Avieon Terrell goes at 29 overall. I had them taking Francis Mauigoa at 13 overall. Now I'm taking Avieon Terrell. 29 seems like a very good value for Avieon Terrell. And anybody sort of jumping into this process, Avieon Terrell, cornerback out of Clemson, the younger brother of A.J. Terrell. So he's got the NFL lineage. Another Clemson Tiger going off the board. So we've seen 3 Clemson Tigers in like the last 8 or 9 picks. But Avieon Terrell, really good value here for the Rams here at 29. So Rams go offensive line and cornerback. They get 2 need picks for them. And I think this is Ty Simpson falling out of the first round.
Yeah, or one of like the Jets at 33 could try to leapfrog here and get in the action. I think that's a real possibility.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. But
no, I'm hoping there's a name that comes out of your mouth here at 30. But I think I don't know if you're going pragmatic. I don't know if you're going with my guy here. The fantasy community might like your pick here.
I'm going pragmatic, Theo, and it's also fantasy relevant. So it's both, and that's Eli Stowers.
Love it.
Tight end from Vanderbilt. Guys, I was on this before the Combine, so don't accuse me of being a Combine merchant. Although I will say athleticism matters for tight ends more than any other position in the league. I don't want to give you the whole speech again because I know we've already done that dance. But for one, I just want to see the fantasy community get really upset all offseason long because people will start using the word Joker again. Who's Sean Payton's Joker? It is really funny because it's a cliche that keeps getting talked about over and over. This is exactly the kind of guy he's going to love, right? He's in that Marquise Colston, Jawan Johnson kind of territory as a player, except he's a significantly better athlete than both those guys. So Eli Stowers, I think, could dominate in a Sean Payton / Davis Webb offense. So this is just a fun pick here, but I love it.
Yeah, Eli Stowers at 30. Like, Brett, we've talked about this again, being a little bit ahead of the market. We're not going to get them all right. But we talked about Stowers going at 30 or 31 for weeks and weeks now. I think we had him at New England at 31 in our previous mock draft. So we've been on this one. The Combine certainly helped him a great deal. And I think his floor is Kansas City at 40. He's going to go somewhere in this 23 through 40 range. It's a name that the fantasy community is really rooting to land well, and I think Denver would be an absolutely great landing spot for him. Considering the age of Cortland Sutton, there's a chance that Stowers would be the leading target earner from Bo Nix heading into his second year of his career and so on. Really a fun one. 31 here for New England. Gosh, it feels like a team that needs to add another offensive lineman, but I think it's going to be an edge rusher. And it comes down to, do they go Cashius Howell or do they go Zion Young? I'm sort of torn on this one. I think I'm going to go with Cashius Howell here. And I'm going to go with Texas A&M, a little bit undersized here at the defensive end position compared to Zion Young, a little smaller. But Cashius Howell, really productive player played at Bowling Green in the MAC, was very productive there, and then transfers to Texas A&M, continues to be very productive. So Cashius Howell, 31 to New England. They stick on the defensive side of the ball. No offensive player there. What position do you have them taking in your mock?
I think offensive line is a good call, but if they were to go edge rusher, I think that's probably the second place I'd look. I would have aired Zion Young just because traits, like Vrabel's a traits guy with his defensive background. Zion Young has the arm length. There are very few coaches who are really going to let that be a death nail. Vrabel probably is one for Cashius Howell, unfortunately. So I don't know though, because I look at like Kayvon Chason and like that's a very similar profile to Cashius Howell. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I could be wrong. I just think maybe Zion Young's a better fit for them. But
well, there we go. Brett does not like the Cashius Howell selection. That's his way of saying he doesn't like it.
I like Cashius Howell. I just don't know about for that team, unless he is directly replacing Kayvon Chason, which he is a free agent, so maybe that's a thing.
Let us know in the comments which way you think New England's going to go. Do you like the Stowers pick? And really our entire mock draft. Let us know the picks you think are the great. Let us know the picks you think are terrible. And close it out here. 32 overall Seattle Seahawks. And this is going to be another team where they have a lot of cap space. They have a lot of free agents coming up. The Super Bowl champions. This is a really interesting pick, trying to project this again at the very beginning of March.
Yeah, the famous meme of I'll effing do it again.
Do it again.
This is it. They're going to do it again. They're going to go safety, Toledo, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. And just why not? We have Kobe Bryant is a pending free agent. Josh Jobs a pending free agent. Reek Woolen a pending free agent. Let's just keep adding talent. We can't resign all those guys. Let's keep adding talent to the secondary. I love the idea of rolling out Julian Love, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, and Nick Amon-Wari in our secondary. That's just three move pieces that can just kind of play anywhere, do athletic things, and be a big physical presence. So I think the rich just get richer here with this pick.
Yeah, I love the pick, and I think he's a first-round pick. So getting him in at 32 is great. The idea of having that sort of athleticism at the safety position is frightening. And I think it's a team that defensively showed that they are an absolute force to reckon with. Add that sort of level of athletic talent. I mean, I love that pick. I wish I could do a do-over and take Emmanuel McNeil-Warren with one of these other guys. But hey, fantasy community, we got Eli Stowers in the first round, multiple wide receivers. Omar Cooper did not get into the first round. Ultimately, Brett, when the actual NFL draft occurs, do we see Cooper, that steam continue, and he goes inside of round one? That's a name that I think some people would be disappointed to not see us project in round one here.
Yeah, there's a few receivers right on that edge, right? I think Brazel is
100%. Yeah,
is a first round pick. I'm still a huge Elijah Surratt guy. I like him better than both Cooper and Brazel. So, yeah, I do think when it's all said and done, there's a chance another receiver slides into the first round. Even at 31, we went Cashius Howell there, but that's a spot. They still need a legit wide receiver of the future. They got a couple nice complementary pieces right now, and aging Stephon Diggs and Kayshon Boutte, but I think they for sure could look at an Omar Cooper or a Elijah Surratt or a Chris Brazel. I think Brazel's in play for the Broncos at 30 even.
Yeah, and I think
if they didn't want to go Stowers, the length there, it's a really good comp, to replace Cortland Sutton eventually and all that stuff. So,
and I think that 24 through 27 range, Cooper's absolutely in that wheelhouse, especially if wide receivers go a little higher than maybe we had them projected in this mock draft. Make sure you stick with us here at Fantasy Points all off season long. Make sure you're checking fantasypoints.com for all of Brett's amazing work on this class, as well as my articles and dynasty rankings. Ryan Heath and I broke down our NFL Combine winners for Dynasty. You can only get that on Fantasy Points Dynasty YouTube. That's our newest YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to that one. On Dynasty Life this week, I'm recording with Casey Myers of the FF Dynasty. Big time Dynasty podcast. We're going to do a Dynasty rookie mock draft. I'm going to have Ben Gretsch on Fantasy Football Daily. We're talking about year 3 players who are going to break out this year. We're everywhere here at Fantasy Points. We've got you covered on everything this offseason. And Brett, we're breaking down free agency in a number of days. This is a great time of year. Stick with us here at Fantasy Points if you want to win your fantasy league. We'll see you soon.